What if I told you that everything you're trying to fix in your relationship doesn't need weeks, months, or a perfect moment? It just needs 24 hours. Not even that. Just a few intentional moments. Because love isn't lost in big mistakes. It fades in small neglects. But here's the good news. It also gets rebuilt in small, powerful choices. And today, I'll show you 5 of them. We often believe that the strength of a relationship is measured by the grand moments, the elaborate vacations, the expensive gifts, the surprise parties. We're taught to equate love with drama and scale. But in truth, connection isn't built in the big cinematic gestures. It's born, grown, and sustained in the smallest moments. It thrives in the way we show up daily, especially when there's nothing flashy to gain from it. Think about it. When someone truly remembers how you like your coffee, or pauses a busy day to ask how you're really feeling, not as a formality, but because they genuinely care, that's when trust begins to root itself. These moments are tiny in size, but massive in emotional weight. They whisper, "I see you." And that feeling of being seen is what makes love feel safe, deep, and enduring. Grand gestures can be beautiful. They can create joy and memory, but they often come with pressure, expectation, and performance. Daily connection, on the other hand, is unfiltered. It's in the way you say good morning. It's in the touch of a hand when words fall short. It's in remembering that your partner hates being interrupted or that they need time to decompress before talking. These seemingly insignificant moments add up, and over time they become the language of your relationship. We often miss these chances to connect because they feel too ordinary to matter. But the truth is, relationships don't fail because of a lack of fireworks. They fade because the spark of small efforts goes missing. People stop checking in. They stop listening without distraction. They stop asking questions that invite depth, not because they don't care, but because they start assuming it will all run on autopilot, and nothing meaningful ever does. Connection thrives in the choice to pause and be present. When you're washing dishes and your partner starts to speak, connection is in whether or not you stop and make eye contact. It's in whether you listen with your full attention, not while mentally checking your to-do list. Presence, not performance, keeps love alive. Think about the most impactful moments you've experienced in love. Chances are they weren't the loudest. They were the ones that felt the most human. The ones where you were vulnerable and met with warmth. Or the times you were struggling and someone simply stayed. They didn't solve the problem. They didn't bring balloons, but they stayed. They cared enough to remain in the discomfort with you. That's real connection. That's what intimacy is made of. When we start paying attention to the little things, we shift the atmosphere of a relationship. It becomes safer. It becomes softer. Walls begin to fall, not because of a single big apology, but because of consistent, gentle reinforcement that you are loved, that you are valued, that you matter every day, not just on anniversaries. So if you want to strengthen your relationship, stop waiting for the next big gesture. Instead, wake up tomorrow and notice the tiny spaces where connection lives. Say thank you with sincerity. Touch their back as you pass by. Ask a real question and stay long enough to hear the full answer. These are not minor acts. These are the building blocks of emotional closeness. The most extraordinary relationships are not built on the extraordinary. They're built on the ordinary, done consistently, with intention, presence, and heart. Because when it comes to love, it's never the scale of the act that matters most. It's the soul behind it. And nothing speaks louder than the little things we choose to do, day after day, when we don't have to. In relationships, we're often taught to communicate clearly, speak our truth, and stand our ground. But what if real connection isn't built by being right? It's built by being curious. The truth is, most arguments, misunderstandings, and emotional disconnections come from a lack of curiosity. We're too quick to defend, to correct, to prove a point. But love doesn't thrive in correctness. It thrives in understanding. And understanding can only grow when we choose to be curious. Being curious means entering a conversation not to win, but to learn. It's a mindset shift. Instead of saying, let me explain why I'm right, you ask, help me understand why this matters to you. It requires humility. It asks you to drop the armor of ego and to be more interested in their perspective than your position. And that shift, however small, can change everything. When we feel misunderstood in a relationship, it's rarely because the other person intentionally ignores us. It's usually because they're listening through the lens of their own experience, not ours. Curiosity is what helps us take off that lens. It's what helps us see the world not just from our own viewpoint, but through the eyes of the person we love. Think about the last time you and your partner had a disagreement. What would have changed if you responded with, tell me more, instead of, that's not what happened? What if you had asked, what did you feel in that moment? Instead of correcting the timeline or explaining your intentions. The need to be right often blocks the chance to be close. Curiosity doesn't mean you abandon your truth. It means you create room for theirs. It's not passive, it's powerful. Because asking someone to open up and actually being ready to receive their answer without judgment builds emotional safety. And when people feel safe, they stop performing. They stop defending. They start being real. Hearing something you don't agree with or don't fully understand and resisting the urge to fix, argue, or shut down. It means pausing and saying, tell me why this is hard for you, not because you're at fault, but because you care enough to explore their emotional landscape, not just your own. In long-term relationships, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking you already know everything about the other person. You know their story, their triggers, their patterns. But people evolve. Feelings shift. Needs change. And curiosity is what keeps love awake. It keeps you from assuming. It keeps you from becoming emotionally lazy. It reminds you that no matter how well you know someone, there's always more to discover, if you're willing to ask. When you lead with curiosity, arguments soften. They become conversations instead of battles. You begin to recognize that your partner's emotional responses are not random. They're rooted in something. And when you ask the right questions, those roots become visible. You move from reacting to responding, from assuming to understanding, from defending to connecting. So the next time you feel the urge to correct, pause, take a breath, ask a question, not a surface level one, but something real. What hurt you about that? What do you need from me right now? How can I make you feel safer next time? These are not weakness. They are strength in action. They show a level of emotional maturity that makes relationships unshakable. You don't have to have all the answers to be a good partner. You just have to be willing to keep asking the right questions. Because in the end, being curious doesn't just make you more understanding. It makes you more lovable. It creates a relationship where both people feel heard, known, and deeply seen. And that's far more powerful than being right. Love cannot thrive where safety is absent. It doesn't matter how passionate, intense, or deeply felt the connection is. If someone doesn't feel emotionally safe, love begins to shrink. Safety isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's about knowing that when we bring our whole selves, our flaws, fears, and insecurities, we won't be judged, rejected, or manipulated. Emotional safety is the invisible architecture that holds everything else in place. Without it, even the strongest feelings eventually erode. Many people misunderstand what emotional safety means. It's not just about avoiding anger or avoiding conflict. In fact, true safety allows for conflict because it means the relationship can hold space for disagreement without turning into destruction. Safety means I can tell you the truth and trust that you won't weaponize it later. It means I can cry and not feel weak. It means I can make a mistake and not be punished with silence, distance, or guilt. This kind of safety takes intention. It's built through consistency, through showing up again and again in the little moments. When your partner is frustrated, when they're not at their best, when they're scared and raw. Anyone can be kind when it's easy, but safety is created when we choose compassion over defensiveness, especially when it's hard. We often think love is built by showing how much we care, but more often it's built by showing how we care when the other person is vulnerable. Do we listen without interrupting? Do we try to understand before reacting? Do we take responsibility when we cause harm instead of getting defensive or deflecting? These small choices are what build or break the sense of safety. For someone who's been hurt before, safety becomes even more important. They might love deeply but struggle to express it. They might pull away in moments that seem confusing. What they're really doing is checking. Can I trust you with this part of me? Will you still love me if I show you the part I've always hidden? That's not weakness, that's survival. And if you want to build a real relationship, you have to make room for that. When a person feels safe, they soften. They speak more openly. They express their needs with less fear. Their guard comes down. That's when intimacy grows. Not just physical closeness, but emotional closeness. The kind where you feel like your partner really knows you. Not just the version you perform, but the version you are in your quietest, rawest moments. You don't have to be perfect to create this kind of space. You just have to be intentional. You have to care more about connection than control. You have to be willing to listen when it's uncomfortable, to admit when you're wrong, to reassure when it's not even your fault. And you have to recognize that love isn't measured by how you feel, it's measured by how safe the other person feels when they're with you. It's easy to say, I love you, but the question that really matters is, do they feel safe with you? Do they feel like they can breathe around you, or do they feel like they're walking on eggshells? Do they feel like they have to perform, or can they rest in your presence? Love without safety is exhausting. Love with safety is transformative. When someone feels safe, they don't just stay, they grow. They become more of who they truly are. And in that kind of space, love doesn't just survive, it flourishes. Because at the end of the day, love isn't just about how much we feel, it's about how deeply we make each other feel safe to be fully alive. It's easy to fall into the habit of noticing what's wrong in a relationship. The missed call, the forgotten chore, the sharp tone, the silence. Our brains are wired to detect threats, so criticism comes naturally, especially when we feel disappointed, frustrated, or disconnected. But if you want to strengthen a relationship, if you want to build something lasting and fulfilling, then you have to understand this simple truth. Gratitude will always have a higher return on investment than criticism. Gratitude is more than just saying thank you. It's the practice of seeing what's good and choosing to acknowledge it. It's a way of shifting focus from what's lacking to what's working, from flaws to effort, from unmet expectations to quiet contributions. In relationships, this shift is powerful because what you focus on grows. The more you criticize, the more problems you'll see. The more you appreciate, the more reasons you'll find to be grateful. Criticism tends to create defensiveness. Even when it's valid, even when it's well-meaning, it puts people on edge. It closes hearts instead of opening them. Over time, constant criticism, spoken or unspoken, leaves your partner feeling like they're never enough. And when someone doesn't feel like they're enough, they stop trying, not because they don't care, but because the emotional cost of trying becomes too high. Gratitude does the opposite. It opens people up. It affirms. It reinforces effort. It communicates, I see you. I notice what you're doing. It matters. And that kind of acknowledgement energizes people. It makes them want to do more. Not because they're being pushed, but because they're being valued. Gratitude invites closeness. It makes love feel safe. It creates a space where people feel seen, accepted, and appreciated. What's incredible is how little it actually takes. One sincere thank you can shift the tone of an entire evening. One unexpected compliment can bring down emotional walls that criticism has built up over weeks. When you say, I love how hard you work, or I appreciate you listening to me, even when you're tired, you're not just commenting on their actions, you're reinforcing their worth. You're saying you matter to me in a way that words alone rarely convey. In the rush of daily life, It's easy to forget these moments. We assume our partner knows we're grateful. We tell ourselves we'll say it later. But time passes, and all they're left with is the weight of what we point out as wrong. The cost of that silence is greater than we think. People don't fall out of love because the love disappears. They fall out of love because they feel invisible, unappreciated, unacknowledged. Gratitude brings them back. It's also worth noting that gratitude transforms the giver as much as the receiver. When you intentionally look for what's good, your perspective softens, your heart becomes more generous, your patience increases. Gratitude doesn't make you blind to problems. It just stops you from becoming consumed by them. It reminds you that love is a choice made every day, not just a feeling that comes and goes. If you want to change the atmosphere of your relationship, start with gratitude. Don't wait for a grand reason. Don't wait for perfection. Thank them for the small things. Praise their effort. Recognize their heart. And do it out loud. Do it often. Let your words be the reminder that they are valued, not just for what they do, but for who they are. Criticism might bring temporary control, but gratitude builds lasting connection. And in the long run, that connection is worth more than any moment of being right. Gratitude doesn't just make your partner feel better. It makes your relationship stronger, deeper, and more resilient. And that is always a return worth investing in. In relationships, intensity is often mistaken for depth. The passionate declarations, the grand gestures, the all-night conversations, they feel powerful, even life-changing. But while intensity can ignite a connection, it's consistency that sustains it. Intensity is a spark. Consistency is the flame that keeps the relationship warm long after the spark fades. And if you want a love that lasts, not just a love that impresses, then consistency will always matter more. Intensity is often fueled by emotion, and emotions by nature are unpredictable. They spike, then fade. You can feel completely in love one day and disconnected the next. That's not a flaw, it's human. But when your relationship depends only on high emotional moments to feel alive, you risk crashing during the lows. Consistency, on the other hand, is what carries you through those fluctuations. It's what makes love dependable, not just exciting. Consistency isn't glamorous. It's not loud or attention-seeking, but it's powerful. It looks like sending a good morning message every day, not just when you're in a good mood. It looks like checking in even when you're busy. It looks like keeping your word, following through on small promises, showing up when you say you will. These things seem simple, even mundane, but they are the quiet pillars of trust. Trust is never built in the intense moments. It's built in the repetitive ones. The moments when your partner sees that your actions match your words, that your love doesn't disappear when you're tired, annoyed, or distracted, that your care isn't conditional on how well they perform or how much attention they give back. Consistency says, you can count on me. And in a world full of uncertainty, that message is gold. Intensity can feel addictive. It gives us a rush. But it can also mask deeper issues. Some people use intensity to avoid vulnerability, sweeping someone off their feet so they don't have to show their deeper fears. Others use intensity to compensate for inconsistency. They disappear emotionally, then return with a dramatic display of affection to reset the emotional balance. But that pattern creates anxiety, not intimacy. It keeps relationships on edge. Real connection grows in the quiet spaces, when the big emotions settle and you still choose each other. When you're not driven by infatuation, but by intention. Consistency is choosing to love on ordinary Tuesdays. It's showing up when it's inconvenient. It's staying kind during conflict. That's where deep love lives, not in intensity, but in reliability. Consistency also creates emotional safety. When someone knows what to expect from you, they don't have to stay in fight or flight mode. They don't have to guess if you're still invested or if your affection is going to vanish tomorrow. That safety doesn't make love boring, it makes it deeper. It allows people to relax, to open, to trust more fully. And when there's trust, there's room for real intimacy, the kind that doesn't need fireworks to feel meaningful. If you want to strengthen your relationship in a lasting way, stop focusing on how to impress your partner and start focusing on how to support them. Be consistent in your love, your presence, your listening, your respect. Let your affection show up not only in dramatic moments, but in daily actions. Let love be something they can depend on, not something they have to keep earning. Anyone can say the right thing once. Anyone can make a grand romantic gesture now and then. But who are you in the day-to-day? Who are you when the relationship isn't exciting, when life gets messy, when no one's watching? That's the version of you that matters most. Because in the end, consistency isn't the opposite of passion. It's the proof of it. When you show up again and again with love, even when it's not convenient or easy, you're saying, this matters. You matter. And I'm not going anywhere. Thing you can offer someone you love isn't money, advice, or solutions. It's your full, undivided presence. Presence means more than just being in the same room. It means you are emotionally available. You're not half scribbling, half listening. You're not nodding while mentally drafting tomorrow's to-do list. You're here, now, attentive, curious, open. That kind of presence tells the other person, you matter. You are worth my time, my focus, my attention. You deserve my 100%, my focus, my attention. It's one of the most affirming messages we can send. You don't need to have all the right words. You don't need to fix anything. Often people don't want solutions. They want someone to sit with them, to feel what they're feeling without trying to steer them out of it. That's what presence offers. Not escape, but companionship. It says, I'm with you in this, which is more powerful than, let me fix this. The mistake many people make in relationships is thinking that love is about doing more, buy more, plan more, say more. But often, the most impactful moments are the ones where we simply stay. Stay in the conversation. Stay in the discomfort. Stay when it's easier to check out, turn away, or retreat into ourselves. Being present isn't easy. It requires effort. It requires choosing to engage instead of avoid. Presence is also how emotional safety is built. When someone knows you're really listening, when they can feel that your attention isn't scattered, they open up. They stop performing. They start to trust. And in that trust, intimacy deepens. Vulnerability only shows up when presence is felt, because no one wants to open their heart to a distracted mind. You may not always realize it, but your presence can calm someone else's storm. When your energy is steady, when your eyes meet theirs with warmth, when your voice slows instead of escalates, you become a grounding force. You make it easier for your partner to come back to themselves, to feel seen, to feel heard. And in a world where people feel increasingly invisible, that matters. What makes presence so powerful is its scarcity. Anyone can send a gift or type out a quick thinking of you, but to sit with someone, unplugged, undistracted, and wholly invested, that's rare. That's sacred. It's a quiet kind of love that speaks volumes. And often, it's remembered far longer than anything you ever said or did. Presence also transforms conflict. When tensions rise, when misunderstandings happen, your ability to stay present, to breathe, to listen, to resist reacting, can change the entire direction of the conversation. Instead of spiraling into blame and defense, presence creates a pause, a space where empathy can live, where understanding can enter, where connection doesn't get lost in the noise of the moment. You don't have to be perfect to offer your presence. You just have to be willing to slow down and see the person in front of you, to choose them over your phone, to choose their story over your assumption, to choose this moment over all the noise pulling you elsewhere. It doesn't require extra time. It requires better attention. Love doesn't always ask for more. Sometimes it simply asks for here, for now, for you, fully present. Because in the end, that's what most people crave, to be met, not with perfection, but with presence. And when you give that kind of attention, you give someone the space to feel whole, loved, and enough. Not because of what you said, but because of how fully you showed up.